Hey there, young scientist. Have you ever wondered how your body works? How do you eat, breathe, and stay active all day? Today, we are going to be on an amazing journey inside the human body to understand the magic of digestion, respiration, and circulation. What are we going to study? First, digestive system, how our body processes food. Second, respiratory system, how we breathe and get energy. And third, circulatory system, how our heart pumps life into every cell. But before we begin, a quick introduction. I'm Sulba Barge, your guide for today's exciting lesson on human anatomy. You can also follow me on my channel Life Science with Sulba for more amazing biology insights. Welcome back. Let's start with the digestive system. Okay, in digestive system, we need to focus on the types of nutrients. There are two types of nutrients. Macronutrient, which consists of C for carbohydrate and C for cereals for an example. Then we have P for protein, where protein consists of P for pulses, and F for fats, which consists of fatty food like oil and butter. Then comes the micronutrient, where we include vitamins and minerals. In vitamins, we have A, B, C, D, E, and K. And the minerals like iron, sodium, calcium, and phosphorus, which you would be able to see in your periodic table also. The second part is digestion. So breaking down of food into simpler substances. The third is absorption, where the nutrient absorbed in the small intestine, in the villi. And the next one is assimilation, where the nutrient is transported to the cell for energy. This will be included in the next chapter, the respiratory system. And the last part is egestion, where we expel our waste through anus. Now, the key digestive organs. The first part we will be starting is with the mouth, where we have teeth. There are 4 types: incisors for cutting, canines for tearing, premolars and molars for grinding. Then comes the tongue. It helps in tasting, mixing of food, and even swallowing. Next is salivary gland, which produces saliva, and that saliva contains amylase enzyme for breaking our starch into maltose. And maltose means 2 molecules of glucose. Then the food goes into the stomach, which secretes gastric juices. Now, the HCl is going to make the environment acidic. Inactive pepsinogen becomes active pepsin in HCl at pH 2. And we have renin for milk digestion, where the curdling of the milk will happen. Next is the small intestine. Further digestion and absorption with the help of bile as well as pancreatic juice happens. Bile is going to be helping in emulsification of fat, while the pancreatic juice will be having lots of enzyme to break down fats, proteins, carbohydrate into their simpler forms. Then we have large intestine, where no digestion happens, but it's needed for absorbing a lot of water. The undigested food will be removed from the anus. Once glucose from digested food enters the blood, it is carried to every cell where it undergoes respiration to release energy. And we call this as respiration. So breaking of glucose molecule to produce energy in the form of ATP. Now the respiratory system chapter, it consists of the definition and definitely the full form of ATP. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. There are 2 types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration, one is anaerobic respiration. So when we use oxygen to produce energy, we call it aerobic respiration. When we do the respiration in the absence of oxygen, we call it anaerobic respiration. Example, in muscles, when we have cramp or lactic acid formation, that is anaerobic respiration. Now the next part here is the respiratory organs. So let's start with our nose. The nose, nostrils, and the nasal chamber, it filters air using mucus and hair. Then comes the pharynx. P for pharynx. Remember it as P for passage. which is going to be leading the food into the food pipe or the air into the windpipe. The next is trachea, the windpipe. T for trachea, it's a tract which is going into the two lungs, and it has C for cartilaginous ring to stop it from collapsing. Then the branches of the trachea. So B for branches, and we call it B for bronchi. Now this bronchi is going to be further divided into bronchioles, which carry the air from the trachea to the alveoli. And alveoli, they are like grape-like structure, which we call it as tiny air sac for gaseous exchange. Then comes the lungs, elastic organ responsible for breathing. So how do we breathe? We inhale, we exhale. During inhalation, the diaphragm is pulled downwards or it's contracted, and the lungs expand, taking the air inside. And where the air is inside during the inhalation process, the ribs, they move outward and upwards. While during the exhalation part, exactly opposite happens. The diaphragm relaxes and becomes dome-shaped, and the lungs contract, and the air is given out. And as the air is pushed out, the rib cage goes inwards and downwards. We have 4 common respiratory diseases, where the first one is bronchitis. Anything with the itis in the ending is inflammation. And when we say inflammation, it is reddening and swelling of something. So bronchi is becoming inflamed, that is red and swollen. It mostly happens because of smoking and pollution, and sometimes by viral infection. Then we have asthma, where a person, if inhales an allergen or infectious air or polluted air, sometimes causes asthma, where a person will have difficulty in breathing. And we get bronchodilator, where a person takes it inside to make sure that the windpipe, it expands and the person will not have any difficulty in breathing. Then comes the pneumonia with a P. So infection where the air sacs are filled with fluid, and these air sacs are nothing but alveoli. It's mostly due to bacterial infection. Now we have the last, tuberculosis. In tuberculosis, we have chronic lung disease. When we say chronic, we are talking about a long duration. Intensity can be a little less. So chronic lung infection, which is prevented by BCG vaccine. We already got BCG vaccine when we were small babies of almost 10 days old. So we have a small mark over here, that is your BCG vaccine. Now this TB is identified by a persistent coughing throughout weeks and months. So if you find someone who is continuously coughing for a month, you should get them checked for tuberculosis. The oxygen we inhale is carried by the blood to every cell, while carbon dioxide is transported back to the lungs for exhalation. So now we are moving on from the respiratory system to the circulatory system. We need to understand the components of the circulatory system, where we have the blood, which carries oxygen, nutrient, and removes waste. Then we have blood vessels like arteries, A for arteries, which carries blood, A for away from the heart. And then we have veins, which is carrying the blood towards the heart. And the capillaries, they are like connection between the arteries and the veins, which are mostly used for diffusion of gases. And then we have the next most important part, our heart. So our heart pumps blood throughout the body. Our blood composition is mostly, it has plasma, a yellowish fluid, which is 90% of water with 10% of nutrients. If we put WBCs in it, we call it lymph. And when we put RBCs and platelets in it, we call it blood. And mostly this blood, it carries oxygen using hemoglobin, that is the RBCs. It fights infection, that is the WBCs. When you have a cut or a wound, the platelets are the one which is helping you in blood clotting. You have to remember the most important part, that is how the blood flows from heart to the body, from body to the heart, from heart to the lungs, and from lungs to the heart. You need to know the path of blood flow as pulmonary and systemic both. From superior and inferior vena cava, when the blood goes into the right atrium, it goes down through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. From there, it is carried through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Now, these lungs, they are going to be oxygenating it and will be giving the oxygenated blood back to the heart, where the oxygenated blood, that is the hemoglobin with oxygen, we call it oxyhemoglobin. This oxyhemoglobin goes from the left atrium into the left ventricle via bicuspid or mitral valve. And then it goes to the aorta. Aorta is the biggest artery in your whole body. So it goes to the aorta, and from aorta through arteries, it is supplied to the whole body. And when we say whole body, it is supplied to each and every cell of the body. Now these cells, they are going to be taking in that oxygen. They will be using that glucose from the digestive system, and they will be putting it into the cell and doing cellular respiration, where they will be producing ATPs. That is the energy in the form of ATPs. And then once the glucose is broken down into energy, the carbon dioxide is given back from the cell to the blood. And the blood carries that carbon dioxide, that is carbon dioxide and hemoglobin, we call it carbaminohemoglobin. It goes from the cell to the heart again through superior and inferior vena cavas. So here the whole circulation is completed. So repeat with me: superior and inferior vena cava, to the right atrium, to the tricuspid valve, to the right ventricle, from pulmonary artery to the lungs, from lungs through pulmonary vein to the left atrium, to the left ventricle, from aorta to the whole body, and it's coming back again via superior and inferior vena cava. Your heart beats 72 times per minute on an average. Pulse can be felt on your wrist. So you have to just put your 2 fingers here on your wrist and you will be able to feel your pulse. Exercise, jumping, Zumba, dance, it increases your heart rate, while relaxation slows it down. The effect of pollution on your health. Inhaling polluted air can lead to respiratory diseases. Wearing masks can help filter out some harmful particles. And smoking damages the lungs and should be avoided. Now, here are 5 key exam writing tips. The first one is be precise and concise. Write to the point, avoid unnecessary details. Second, remember the diagram well. Do not shade, do not color the diagram. Try to make an outline diagram of anything which is asked. Third thing, label more than expected. If a diagram comes for 2 marks, make sure you have at least 4 labels ready. Focus more on the difficult diagrams. For example, the whole respiratory system, the whole digestive system, and the whole circulatory system, where you will not be told to draw. You will be told to observe the diagram and write the answers based on the questions. Smaller diagrams like villi, teeth, alveoli, artery, and vein, you need to know how to draw. You're going to follow the key tips. The fifth one is neat and structured answer. So highlight key terms and ensure clarity in explanation. I hope with this, your revision is over, and here's a big question for you, those who are watching this. If a person jumps for 10 minutes, what changes will you see in their heart rate, breathing, as well as in the mood? Drop your answers in the comments. If you or anyone is preparing for Biology Standard 10th ICSE Board exam, check out my SuperNotes, a 40-page crisp revision guide covering the entire syllabus in a structured way. You can get it in the link in the description. Let's ace this exam together. See you in the next videos. Stay happy, stay blessed, and stay motivated. Till then,